Hi, K-pop lovers. Welcome back to our channel. Before we dive in, if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button right now, smash the like button, drop a comment below telling me your favorite BTS era, and make sure notifications are on so you never miss a video like this. Okay, let's get into it. Because what I'm about to tell you is something that the mainstream Western music industry does not want you to talk about openly. Let me ask you something. What would it take for a group of 7 young men, singing mostly in Korean, a language spoken by roughly 51 million people on the planet, to outsell, outstream, and outperform almost every single Western artist on the face of the earth? Think about it for a second. The entire global music industry has been dominated by English-language artists for over a century. America, the UK, they wrote the rules, they built the charts, they decided who mattered and who didn't. And then, from a small entertainment company in Seoul that nobody outside of Korea had ever heard of, 7 boys walked in and rewrote every single one of those rules. And here's the part that nobody in the Western music industry wants to admit out loud. When BTS topped the Billboard Hot 100 with Dynamite in 2020, becoming the first Korean group in history to do so, it didn't just break a record, it broke the idea that the global music industry had a ceiling that non-English acts couldn't crack. Artistic Army. Stay with me, because this story gets bigger. Much bigger. Here is your first hook, and I want you to burn this number into your memory. BTS is estimated to bring in approximately $5 billion a year to South Korea's economy. That's around 0.5% of the country's entire GDP. NPR, not $5 million. Not $50 million. $5 billion per year. From one music group. According to a report from the Hyundai Research Institute, that figure doesn't just include album sales or ticket revenue, it also accounts for tourism, consumer products, language learning, streaming traffic, and even spin-off exports such as cosmetics and fashion. Quartz for context, as of 2019, BTS's economic contribution to South Korea was estimated to be comparable in scale to Korean Air, the flagship airline of an entire nation. Wikipedia, let that sink in. A boy band. Comparable to a national airline. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable for Western artists. BTS has accumulated 26 Guinness World Records, including records for the most Twitter engagements and the most viewed video and music video on YouTube. Wikipedia, they hold the record for the most Billboard Music Awards won by a group or duo with 12 total wins, breaking Destiny's Child's previous record. Army Bangtan World and Grammy nominations? BTS became the first K-pop act in history to receive a Grammy nomination when Dynamite earned a nod for Best Pop Duo/Group Performance in 2021, followed by nominations for Butter in 2022, and then for Yet to Come and My Universe with Coldplay in 2023. Grammy, in fact, they became the only act to be nominated 3 consecutive years in a row in that category since the award category was restructured in 2011, 3 years in a row. No Western group achieved that same streak in that same window. Billboard. But wait, I said Western artists are terrified. Not just impressed. Not just respectful. Terrified. Why? Here is reason number 1. BTS doesn't need the Western gatekeepers anymore, and that terrifies the people who control the gates. Think about how the traditional music industry works. You need radio play. You need late-night show appearances. You need magazine covers and press tour interviews. You need the approval of the Western entertainment machine to be considered legitimate on the global stage. BTS flipped that model completely upside down. Billboard's senior vice president Silvio Pietro Luongo described BTS as comparable to and as influential as the Beatles and the Monkees. Wikipedia, but unlike the Beatles, who needed Ed Sullivan to go global, BTS built their empire directly through their fans, a dedicated, fiercely loyal fandom called ARMY, through social media, YouTube, and direct-to-fan digital platforms. HYBE, their management company, built a digital platform called Weverse that became a $100 million revenue stream, a high-margin, digitally savvy engine monetizing fandoms at a scale never seen before. Quartz. The Western music industry spent decades building walls between artists and audiences. BTS tore those walls down and made billions doing it. Here is reason number 2. And this is the one that nobody talks about. BTS changed what it means to be a fan. In 2017, the Seoul Metropolitan Government signed BTS as tourism ambassadors, crediting them with the recovery of Seoul's shrinking tourism industry following the 2016 THAAD controversy with China. The group brought in an average of 790,000 tourists to Korea annually. Wikipedia. The Korean Foundation for International Cultural Exchange estimates that 800,000 tourists visit South Korea every year for BTS-related reasons, with reports suggesting the band could be responsible for up to 7.6% of all tourists who visit the entire country. Organ. Let me repeat that. 7.6% of an entire nation's tourists are motivated, at least in part, by a music group. When was the last time Taylor Swift made someone book a flight to Tennessee because they wanted to experience American culture the way BTS makes people want to experience Korean culture? ARMY doesn't just stream music. They learn languages. They study Korean history. They fly across oceans. They build a cultural bridge between Korea and the rest of the world, and Western artists have never, in modern history, commanded that level of cultural devotion from a global audience at that scale. Here is reason number 3, and this one is the most recent, and the most jaw-dropping. After a nearly 4-year hiatus for mandatory military service, BTS released their 6th Korean-language studio album, Arirang, on March 20, 2026, just days ago. Wikipedia. And what happened? Arirang pulled in over 110 million streams on Spotify in its first 24 hours alone, breaking the record for the most streamed K-pop album in Spotify history and the most streamed album in a single day in 2026. Music business worldwide. The album also sold 3.98 million physical copies on its first day, surpassing BTS's own previous record, which had been set over an entire first week, in a single day. Music business worldwide. Pre-orders topped 4 million globally across more than 100 countries, and the album claimed number 1 on iTunes in over 80 countries simultaneously. International Business Times. The Western music industry had 4 years, while BTS was away doing mandatory military service, to consolidate control over the global charts. And the moment BTS came back, in 24 hours, they reminded every artist on the planet who the real force of nature is. The Arirang World Tour spans 82 shows across 34 cities in 23 countries, with stadiums of roughly 50,000 seats per night. Fortune tickets for concerts in South Korea, North America, and Europe sold out within hours of going on sale. Wikipedia. Analysts at IBK Investment and Securities estimated the comeback will generate at least 2.9 trillion Korean won, approximately $1.93 billion, potentially rivaling Taylor Swift's Eras tour. Music business worldwide. And that's the conservative estimate. Here is what makes this even more remarkable. While BTS was away, gone from the group stage, the K-pop industry as a whole saw a 19% drop in album sales in 2024. One group. So irreplaceable that their absence caused an industry-wide decline. Not a company. Not a label. One group of 7 human beings from Korea caused a measurable dip in an entire industry's commercial performance just by being absent. You tell me, is there a Western artist alive right now who could claim that kind of structural, industry-defining importance? When BTS doesn't put out an album, an entire global industry feels it. Now let's talk about why this goes far beyond music, because this is perhaps the most terrifying part for the Western establishment. BTS received the Order of Cultural Merit from the President of South Korea in 2018, making them the youngest recipients of this prestigious honor in history. Wikipedia. They have spoken at the United Nations General Assembly, not once, but multiple times, representing South Korea's cultural soft power on the world stage. They were also the youngest recipients of the James A. Van Fleet Award, recognizing their outstanding contributions to the promotion of U.S.-Korea relations. Wikipedia: these are not just pop stars. These are cultural diplomats. Statesmen of sound. And that is a category that the Western entertainment industry has no playbook for, because no Western artist in the modern era has wielded that combination of commercial dominance, diplomatic significance, and genuine cultural movement all at the same time. BTS's endorsement of the Samsung Galaxy S20 significantly boosted both global sales and the visibility of Samsung's flagship product. They've collaborated with Hyundai on a Palisade model that ended up on 6-month backorder, with McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Louis Vuitton, Fila, and Baskin-Robbins, and in every single case, everything sold out. NPR research from the Hyundai Research Institute found that for every 1% increase in search volume for BTS, Korean clothing exports increased by 0.18%, cosmetics by 0.72%, and food by 0.45%. Borgen: they don't just sell music. They move entire national export economies with their cultural gravity. So let me bring this full circle. Why are Western artists terrified of BTS? Because BTS proved that the rules were never actually rules. They proved that you don't need to sing in English to conquer the English-speaking world. They proved that a fandom built on genuine connection and authentic storytelling can outlast any manufactured pop trend the Western machine tries to push. They proved that music from a small country, sung in a language that was once considered commercially irrelevant to Western markets, could generate more economic value than most Fortune 500 companies generate in cultural impact. They proved that you can go away for 4 years, come back, and in 24 hours remind the entire planet that nobody else is playing in your league. The album's title, Arirang, references a centuries-old Korean folk song, regarded as an unofficial anthem in both North and South Korea, whose themes of separation, longing, and quiet resilience have echoed across generations. Wikipedia: and that is perhaps the most powerful statement BTS has ever made. After 4 years away, after military service, after the whole world kept turning without them, they came back not with an English-language crossover bid designed to please Western audiences. They came back rooted in Korea. In who they are. In where they came from. And the world stopped to listen. That's not just influence. That's dominance. And that is exactly why the Western music industry, whether they admit it publicly or not, has never stopped watching BTS over their shoulder. If this video made you see BTS differently, or if you're already ARMY and you've been saying this for years, let me know in the comments below. What do you think is BTS's single greatest achievement that Western media still underestimates? Drop your answer down there. I read every single one. If you learned something new today, hit that like button. It helps this channel more than you know. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we cover stories like this every week. And share this video with someone who still thinks K-pop is just a trend. Because as of March 2026, the numbers don't lie. BTS isn't a trend. BTS is the standard. Annyeong.